The paper was shoved across the desk, not explained, announced. A school hallway fell silent as Malik stood there, expelled in front of everyone, his future erased with one signature. No hearing, no warning, just power doing what it wanted. Teachers looked away. Students didn't move. The message was clear: he didn't belong. The principal leaned back, voice sharp and final. "You're done here." Malik didn't argue. He didn't beg. He walked out while the system congratulated itself. What no one realized was this: that decision didn't end his story. It started a chain reaction they were about to regret. Malik moved through his days with quiet discipline, the kind learned early when mistakes cost more than grades. He woke before sunrise, helped on the farm, then caught the bus to school carrying the same belief his father taught him: that hard work was supposed to matter. Malik Carter didn't ask for favors. He didn't cut corners. He stayed respectful even when respect wasn't returned. At home, his world was simple but steady. Every evening, his father walked the edge of their fields, boots sinking slightly into the soil, eyes scanning the fence line like he was guarding treasure. Nathan Carter never complained, but his hands told the story: cracked, tired, protective. He checked the land the way other men check locks, because losing it wasn't an option. The farm wasn't just property, it was proof they belonged. School felt different. Rules existed, but they bent in ways Malik was never invited to test. Teachers watched him longer. Security lingered closer. A misstep meant consequences others never saw. Principal Richard Whitmore ran the building with calm authority, the kind that came from never being questioned. His decisions moved fast, and appeals rarely made it past his desk. Some people noticed. A teacher hesitated before handing back papers, eyes lingering with concern. Miss Brooks saw patterns she couldn't ignore anymore, even when noticing them felt dangerous. A friend stayed close, lowering his voice in hallways, sensing pressure before it spoke. Riley Thompson understood systems and how quietly they closed ranks. Outside school, the tension followed them home. Black SUVs slowed near the fence line, engines idling while phones lifted toward the fields. Men took photos of crops, of gates, of the house itself. Letters arrived in the mail offering to buy the land for prices that felt like insults. The signature at the bottom stayed the same. Victor Langley didn't show his face yet, but his logo appeared on construction trucks parked just outside town, close enough to feel intentional. Everything felt connected, even if no one said it out loud. Education, land, control. Far beyond Malik's routine, power moved differently. Charles Everingham lived in a world where problems didn't linger. They were handled, quietly, decisively. Nothing had exploded yet, no sirens, no headlines. Just pressure tightening inch by inch. And in places like this, pressure never disappeared on its own. It waited until something broke. The expulsion didn't end when Malik walked out of the school. It followed him into the parking lot, into the bus ride home, and into every quiet moment that came after. His name stopped moving forward and started moving sideways, whispered instead of spoken. Guidance offices went silent. Recommendation requests stalled. College interest that once felt real evaporated without explanation. Malik Carter didn't need a rejection letter to understand what was happening. The system had already decided. Inside the school, the lie settled into official record. Teachers who once corrected his essays now corrected their posture when he entered a room. Security lingered longer near lockers. Administrators spoke about him in past tense. Principal Richard Whitmore moved through the building with calm authority, untouched by doubt, already shaping the story others would repeat. When Malik was called back into the office, it wasn't for fairness. A folder slid across the desk, heavy enough to feel intentional. Inside were blurry photos taken near the equipment room. Grainy images timed late in the afternoon, cropped just enough to suggest guilt. A typed report sat beneath them, stamped and signed. "Zero tolerance for theft," Whitmore said. The accusation landed cleanly. Theft didn't require witnesses. Theft explained everything. Malik understood the trap immediately. Defend himself and risk escalation. Stay silent and let assumption do the work. The principal leaned back, confident, as if the outcome had already been approved. "Sign the withdrawal form," Whitmore added, "and this stays internal." Malik didn't touch the paper. He didn't raise his voice. He stood, walked out, and felt the hallway close behind him. Students watched, but said nothing. Teachers looked away. Silence stepped in exactly where truth should have stood. At home, the pressure shifted to the land. Nathan Carter noticed the change before Malik said a word. Trucks slowed near the fence line now, engines idling longer than necessary. Men stood openly with phones raised, taking photos of crops, gates, and the house. Survey markers appeared overnight, planted just far enough onto their property to feel like a test. Letters arrived in thicker envelopes, offering to buy the land for prices that felt less like negotiations and more like warnings. Nathan didn't respond. He just walked the perimeter every evening, checking soil, locks, and shadows as if something was already being taken. The timing was too precise to ignore. School trouble, land pressure, official notices arriving in the same week. Victor Langley still hadn't shown his face, but his presence felt deliberate. Construction logos matched the trucks outside town. Permits moved faster than they should have. The pressure came from different directions, but it leaned in the same way. Riley Thompson started connecting dots late at night, screens glowing as records stacked neatly into patterns. Development approvals lined up with school decisions. Complaints disappeared. Deadlines appeared out of nowhere. "They're squeezing you from both sides," Riley said. Malik felt the anger settle deeper. This wasn't about rules. It was about leverage, the kind that didn't need threats when consequences spoke clearly enough. At school, the cruelty sharpened. Malik's access was restricted. His name disappeared from lists. Staff meetings happened without him being informed. Principal Whitmore moved confidently, untouchable, certain the narrative was sealed. Each step forward by authority made bystanders quieter. No one wanted to be next. Ms. Brooks tried to slow the damage. She asked for original reports. She requested camera timestamps. Each question earned her a warning wrapped in professionalism. "You're overstepping," she was told. Outside, the land became the final pressure point. The last envelope arrived without ceremony. No offers this time. No polite language. Just a court seal and a deadline printed in bold. Nathan Carter read it once, then again. His hands shook as the words settled into place. 48 hours, he said. The clock had started. Everything tightened after that. Conversations shortened. Nights grew heavier. Malik watched his father walk the land again, slower this time, as if measuring what could be lost. The system believed time would finish the job. Fear would do the rest. Somewhere far above their daily struggle, someone checked a schedule and assumed compliance. They believed pressure always won. They didn't realize they had pushed too far. Because Malik Carter wasn't breaking. He was watching. And as the hours counted down, the lie that started this chain began pulling too much weight. Right before it collapsed, the final hour arrived, without warning. Bells or mercy. The school grounds filled like any other morning. Students moving in clusters, teachers holding folders, administrators standing where they always stood. On the surface, it looked ordinary. Underneath, everything was tightening. Malik stood near the entrance with his father, feeling the weight of eyes before words. Security hovered closer than usual. Phones were already out. The lie had traveled fast, repeated so often it sounded official. Principal Richard Whitmore waited at the steps, posture relaxed, confidence intact. This was the ending he expected, quiet compliance, no witnesses who mattered. Inside the office, the pressure peaked. The withdrawal form sat centered on the desk, its edges too clean. The accusation had already done its work. Whitmore didn't rush. He enjoyed the pause. "You had your chance." Malik didn't answer. He didn't look at the paper. His silence wasn't surrender. It was restraint. Nathan Carter stood beside him, shoulders squared, carrying the weight of the land, the notice, the deadline that had pushed them here. Outside the door, misery. Brooks watched from a distance, aware that truth without timing was still dangerous. Riley Thompson stood near the windows, scanning the courtyard, sensing something about to break. Whitmore leaned forward, tapping the document once, as if that would finish it. "Sign it, and walk away with what dignity you have left." The hallway stayed quiet. Teachers looked away. Students froze. Silence protected the moment exactly as the system intended. Then, the sound arrived. At first, it blended with traffic. Then, it grew louder, heavier, impossible to mistake. The low thunder rolled across the courtyard, windows rattling, papers lifting from desks. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. A helicopter descended over the school, dust and debris spiraling into the air as it touched down. Whitmore stiffened. His confidence faltered for the first time. He stepped outside quickly. forcing a smile as the aircraft doors opened. A man in a tailored suit stepped onto the pavement, calm, unhurried. Charles Everingham didn't scan for approval. He walked straight forward. Whitmore rushed to greet him, hand extended, voice ready. Everingham didn't even look at him. He walked past, straight to Malik, and placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Sorry I'm late, son." The courtyard went silent. Whitmore's hand stayed in the air, forgotten. Phones rose higher. The balance shifted, but not completely yet. Everingham turned only after acknowledging Malik. Whitmore tried to recover, straightening his jacket, reaching for authority that suddenly felt thin. "You don't belong here." Everingham stopped, finally meeting his eyes. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a black folder, thick and worn, and tapped it once against Whitmore's chest. The sound was soft, but the message landed hard. "I own the silence you've been hiding behind." That was the midpoint, the moment everything tipped. Everingham opened the folder, just enough for others to see timestamps, emails, bank records, proof that connected school decisions to land pressure, proof that tied the expulsion to development plans. Victor Langley's name surfaced where it couldn't be buried anymore, linked cleanly to offers, deadlines, and leverage meant to force compliance. Whitmore's breathing changed. His face drained of color. The authority he relied on began to shrink under public scrutiny. Everingham leaned in slightly, voice low but clear enough for phones to capture. "And I also own the bank that holds your mortgage, Principal. Resign now, or I'll release the emails." Whitmore stepped back. His mouth opened, then closed. Control slipped visibly, replaced by calculation, then fear. The crowd felt it. Teachers stared. Students whispered names they'd never expected to say out loud. Miss Brooks moved closer, no longer hiding. Riley Thompson stood beside her, steady. Nathan didn't move, didn't speak, but his presence anchored everything Malik needed to stand through. Whitmore looked around, searching for support that didn't come. The system he trusted required darkness. In the open, it failed him. Malik didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He stood as the truth reshaped the space around him, solid and irreversible. The injustice that nearly erased him had exposed itself in full view. The helicopter blades slowed. The dust settled. But the power shift stayed. Nothing would go back to the way it was. The consequences did not arrive quietly, and they did not arrive gently. By the end of the day, the story that once followed Malik in whispers was replaced by something the system could not control. Principal Richard Whitmore's authority collapsed in full view. His resignation was not debated or delayed. It was demanded, documented, and accepted before the sun went down. Investigations followed immediately, not as rumors, but as formal action that stripped away the protection he once believed permanent. The power he used so confidently could not survive daylight. Victor Langley's reach fractured just as fast. Development permits were frozen. Financial records were opened. The pressure placed on the land was traced, logged, and exposed as part of a calculated pattern. What had once been framed as business decisions was revealed as coercion. The machine that depended on silence stalled the moment people stopped looking away. For Malik Carter, the outcome wasn't applause. It was something far more important. His record was cleared. The accusation that nearly erased him was formally withdrawn and acknowledged as false. Malik didn't need sympathy. He needed his name returned to him, clean and intact. And that is exactly what happened. At home, the most meaningful victory stood quietly. The eviction notice was voided. The land remained untouched. That evening, Nathan Carter walked the perimeter of the fields again, but this time without urgency. The soil was still theirs. The legacy was still standing. Ms. Elena Brooks did not fade back into silence. The risks she took were validated, not punished. Her questions, once treated as dangerous, were finally answered out loud. Riley Thompson no longer had to lower his voice or check over his shoulder. The system that relied on fear lost two of its most effective targets. Charles Everingham did not linger. He never needed to. His presence had already done its work, interrupting injustice, forcing accountability, and proving that power can protect instead of crush when it chooses to. He left behind evidence, consequences, and no room for denial. Because in communities like Malik's, injustice rarely announces itself loudly. Most days, it looks like paperwork, meetings, and signatures that were never meant to be fair. It hides behind policy. It survives through silence. Malik stood on the school steps one last time, not as a victim reclaiming space, but as someone who refused to be erased. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a speech. His dignity spoke clearly enough. So ask yourself, when injustice hides behind procedure, who really pays the price for staying quiet? If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Black Community Struggles, because silence only wins when these stories aren't told.